With talk still of the Heisman going on this week, it begs at the next question for that kid, Jayden Daniels, and some of the other key players from LSU this year. That is the NFL draft. With the possibility that LSU will have 3 first-rounders this year, everyone, including me, is begging to know what team will Jayden Daniels, Malik Nabers, and Brian Thomas belong to come next season. And while we don't know the draft order yet, I think everyone can assume that Daniels will be one of the first overall to be picked up. So it's just a huge question as to where the heck that kid is going. And I mean, whether or not it's fair, I do think that Malik Nabers will be drafted after Marvin Harrison Jr. That's the same Marvin Harrison Jr. whose dad is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but also the same Marvin Harrison Jr. that Malik Nabers lost the Blitnikoff Award to. And when I say lost, he lost by only 1 vote. And like I said, whether or not it's fair, I do think Marvin Harrison Jr. will be picked up first, but I also think Nabers will be picked up very shortly after. All 3, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Nabers, and Brian Thomas, all have a different style of play, and that'll mainly determine where they fall in line of the draft picks. Either way, whatever team Nabers or Thomas ends up with is bound to level up. Those guys are insanely good at what they do. After this commercial, I'll be bringing on Jeff Palermo, who is the news and sports director for the Louisiana Radio Network, and the assistant editor of Tiger Rag, William Weathers, to sit down with Mike Detillier from WWL, who does NFL predictions for Jayden Daniels, Malik Nabers, and Brian Thomas. Today's episode wouldn't be complete without talking about the LSU men's basketball team. It seems the men's basketball team woke up last night and beat Alabama State 74-56, and it also seems from all indication that LSU will finally have Jalen Cook back in the fold come Saturday when LSU takes number 19 Texas in Houston this Saturday. But before we jump into the NFL draft talk, I want to thank our sponsor, Pawpaw's Campers and Cars. That's pawpawsrvs.com, 1-800-728-CAMP, 1-800-728-2267.
Hey neighbors, we're not that far from where you are. Make that short drive to Pawpaw's Campers in Picayune and see our Wildwood, Catalina, Sportsman, and Zinger trailer lines and our Rockwood and Heritage Glen fifth wheel lines. From Houma to Hammond, Biloxi to Jackson, and Mobile and Pensacola, we're not that far from where you are. Come and see us.
You're gonna love the way we deal. Pawpaw's Camper City in Picayune. You're gonna love the way we deal.
That's a good RV, Pawpaw.
Now, I think everyone has their own ideas and, of course, their own dream draft team picks. Like, personally, I would love to see the Saints draft any 3 of these LSU players. I'm not a Saints fan per se, but I think overall the power and the state support that these guys would receive while staying in-state and playing for the Saints would be out of this world. But before I get too ahead of myself and try to make any predictions on this NFL draft, I'm going to let the experts do the talking. Here's to Jeff, William, and Mike Detillier.
Jeff Palermo, News and Sports Director of the Louisiana Radio Network, along with the Assistant Editor for TigerRag.com. That's William Weathers. Joining us now from WWL, NFL, and I still call him a draft analyst, even though he no longer puts out the M&D draft report. Mike Detillier joins us. And Mike, looks like there's a strong possibility we'll have 3 LSU Tigers selected in the first round, with Jayden Daniels, Malik Nabers, and Brian Thomas. Let's start with Jayden Daniels, and it's kind of hard because we don't know exactly the draft order. We're going to have to wait another month for that. But Jayden Daniels is a top 10 pick, right?
I think he's a top 4 pick, and to be honest, it would not surprise me in a quarterback-starved NFL that the first 3 picks are Caleb Williams from USC, Jayden Daniels from LSU, and Drake May from North Carolina. The 3 quarterbacks, bang, 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 right off the bat. The only person that might, because of a need, and maybe a team deciding not to deal down, would be Ohio State wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. But I think Jayden, he won't sleep long on draft day. Believe me, he's going to peel off that board quickly, and it's a premium position. And just his growth as a player, I think is astonishing to watch and how he's jumped up these draft boards. But, you know, I felt since October he'd be a first-round pick. And now I think he's going to go one of the top 4 picks and maybe even as high as 2.
Who do you have as number one? Is it Caleb Williams just because of all
Yeah,
the talent?
I have Caleb Williams as the top guy, and it's close. I'll be honest with you. It's close with the three quarterbacks, and everybody's going to have a little different opinion because of style of play. But I have Caleb Williams from USC as the number one guy.
Let's talk about Malik Nabers. Disappointed he didn't win the Bolitnikoff Award. Marvin Harrison Jr. gets that award. What is it about Marvin Harris when it comes to the draft that has him higher than Malik? Because it seems to me Malik can do it all. But what skill sets or what variable does Marvin Harrison – why does he get the nod over Malik Nabers at the moment?
A little bit bigger, a little bit faster athlete. And it doesn't hurt that your dad's a Pro Football Hall of Fame wideout too. So he does have that sort of trifecta. And when you watch him play, he's a dominant player. He's similar to Malik in that when you watch him play, he's a dominating football player out on the field. So you couldn't go wrong with either one. Now, their styles of play are a little bit different, where a lot of times Marvin is a much more physical receiver downfield than Malik. Malik has really improved as a route runner and his quickness into and out of a cut and a break and his ability to set up a defender. I think Malik Nabers is going to be a top 10 pick in this draft. The only receiver that will get picked ahead of him is Marvin Harrison Jr. And listen, that's nothing wrong with that. So Malik, to think how he got to LSU and that, at one time he was a verbal commitment to Mississippi State, and, Coach O and the staff had to convince him in the days leading on to signing date to come to LSU. So, man, it's a great run for Malik, and he reminds me a lot as a route runner. I think he's a better athlete and a little bit quicker and faster, but he reminds me a lot of Wendell Davis when he was at LSU. Wendell was a tremendous football player at LSU. I think he's a little better athlete. He's a little quicker, a little faster, but just that route running skill set and his ability to set you up, make a move, get open, and then his run after catch skills. He would get the nod over Wendell with those three items. So I thought the world of Wendell Davis and still do today, but Malik, he's been special at LSU.
Last year, if I recall, was a pretty light year for wide receivers. But this year, that does not – it seems like it's the opposite. It's a big year for wide receivers. There's a lot to choose from. Where do you see Brian Thomas fitting into all this?
It's close by 18 to 22 range, but he would be in that range of 18 to 22. Brian is not one step fast. He's two-step fast. That second step, you got issues now. So you better get him off his route fast. And he's really become a much more trusted route runner and also trusting his hands better. I think a lot of times early on in his career, he would catch the ball up against his body and it would somehow get out. And he'd drop pass. That didn't happen nearly as much this year. He's a big play guy with great size. And once he gets those wheels turning, he is fast, and he can run right past you as a defender. So I think he'll go in that 18 to 22 range in round one. He's a different style wideout. He's a big play athlete. Not to say you couldn't use him in the short area of the game, but that's not how LSU used him. They used him really move the chains, get up the field, big play, and he hit. And big time this year with it. And it's so funny. I go back to Manning Passing Academy, and I'm sitting down with Jayden doing the interview, and I asked him, what's the thing he's worked on most? And he said, my medium to long-range throws. I got to get the ball out there. And I think he was a bit of an aimer as a passer. He said, I'll change that in putting the ball out there and with some air under it and let Malik and Brian Thomas and Kyron Lacy and Chris Hilton go out and get it. And that really played right into what Brian Thomas Jr. does best, using his size and his speed to get open downfield. He still needs a little bit more work as a route runner, but he is a dangerous dangerous wideout. I think you'll probably see 6, maybe 7 wideouts going round one. I think it's a real good year for wide receivers and also offensive linemen.
Mike, thanks a lot for your insight on this. Should be interesting to see how it all stacks up, especially for Jayden when it comes to being a top 5 pick. Thanks a lot for your time. Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you again down the road.
Thank you, Jeff. Always my pleasure. Merry Christmas to you and the group.
Thank you, guys. I guess it's going to be an interesting month of waiting until the NFL draft order gets put out, and then even more waiting until the draft happens, which is going to be all the way into April. Until then, we'll be focusing on the LSU-Wisconsin Bowl game that's happening January 1st and waiting to see who exactly is going to be on the field for this game. And now I think everyone can agree that it's very highly unlikely that Jayden Daniels is going to be on the field come January 1st. I think Nabers and Thomas are going to be on the field, but only for a short period of time. You know, with Nabers only having 22 more yards to go to break an LSU school record for receiving yards, I think both of these guys are just going to want to beef up their stats for the last game. But now that we've talked football, I'm excited and almost giddy to talk about the men's basketball game last night. And like I said, it seems these boys woke up and were ready to play last night against Alabama State, winning 74-56. In place of Cook so far this season, LSU's had Mike Williams III, who was a freshman starting point guard, and last night he took over the game in the second half as the Tigers rallied from a 4-point halftime deficit to double up Alabama State and scoring in the second half, led by Williams' season-high tying 15 points to down the Hornets, 74-56. At halftime, Alabama State actually led 34-30, but then Williams led LSU on a 13-0 run as he scored 8 points, including 2 3-pointers, and the Tigers jumped ahead 48-40. Later on in the half, LSU made 6 of 8 shots and extended its lead to 70-54 with 5 minutes remaining. LSU scored only 6 points in the final 5 minutes, but held Alabama State to 2 minutes over that span. LSU shot 57.7% and made 7 3-pointers in the second half. Alabama State shot 29.6% after halftime and was outscored 44-22. The boys, Jordan Wright, he had 13 points with 5 rebounds and 6 assists for the Tigers. Jalen Reed added 13 points and 7 rebounds. Trey Hannibal had a personal season-high 11 points, including an eye-popping slam dunk. And if you caught in the beginning of this basketball talk, I said Mike Williams III is in place of Jalen Cook. And earlier on in the episode, I said Jalen Cook is looking good at playing this Saturday against Texas. Jalen Cook, the junior transfer from Tulane, who began his playing career at LSU 3 seasons ago before transferring to the Green Wave, has transferred back to LSU this season. Cook was expected to start at point guard and lead the Tigers with his near 20-point scoring average and all-around strong point guard play. But, however, Cook was denied eligibility on November 1st by the NCAA, and LSU has been waiting on the NCAA to rule on its appeal, since with no indication of when he might return because of the vagueness on how the NCAA deals with such matters. In Ohio versus NCAA on Wednesday, Judge John Preston Bailey issued a temporary restraining order that's lasting 14 days, granting immediate eligibility to any college athlete in Cook's situation, any college athlete seeking eligibility via a multi-transfer waiver, that is. And as we saw last night, Cook was not in suit for the game against the Hornets, but he will be able to be in the game this Saturday against Texas. Welcome back, Jalen.
People come from everywhere to Pawpaw's Campers and Cars.
All at Pawpaw's Campers and Shit is Pawpaw's Campers and Cars are people.
And we're gonna let it go for I forgot.
Take the whole family over to Picayune. We got something for you. All right. What else we gonna say?
PawpawsNicePrice.com.
That's probably all we need to say.
All right, that's it for today's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in, as always. Thank you to Jeff Palermo, William Weathers, and Matt Detillier for coming in and giving some insight on this NFL draft. It's a waiting game now to see where these guys end up. The men's basketball team is set to be on court this Saturday at 11 a.m. against Texas. in Houston, Texas. And the women's basketball team is set to appear again this Sunday at 2 p.m. against Northwestern State in the PMAC. This is Camryn Connor, your host with Tiger Rag Audibles podcast, and I'll be back with more LSU updates and news, so stay tuned in with us. Before I go, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Paw Paws Campers and Cars. That's pawpawsrvs.com, 1-800-728-CAMP, 1-800-728-2267.